Well, howdy, folks. I'm not about to say internet people. I know you guys are out there one way or another. 4:30 p.m. on the West Coast time. It is still the 9th of March, 2024. Being addressed to Justin Key, aka Bo of the Fifth Column, regarding your message regarding about generations and a shift. I'm also sending this one over to Artist in Recovery, aka Daryl P. What's going on, dude? Basically, you had some good points raising issues about the generational differences, and as always, you don't put enough into it. I did a quick Wikipedia search. It's one of the lousiest engines out there, but sometimes it does have some useful stuff, including how many times we as humanity kept putting things into the famine stage, into the famine events. See, we only grew up with our own version of what famine was like, but did anybody actually study history? History? Dude, you want to keep it short and sweet for the people's attention span. I'm saying screw that noise. I'm not playing into the public, into the fallacy at this point over here. If they want to pay attention less, that's on them. But let's get some education down their throat if we have to. History was never one of my strongest suits going through school, but I studied a little bit about it here and there. I tried to keep up with the current events, and it was still beyond my recognition. Born in the 60s, I was. So yeah, I witnessed at a very young age of when a man lands on the moon, has open heart surgery, dies 3 times, come back to life. Uh, Earthquakes happening in the Seymour region of California, scary as hell. And then aftershocks after that, not to mention gas crisis. Oh, did I actually say something about this being the almost the apocalyptic age of Cold War? When there were certain situations happening that could have brought us into an apocalypse that we could have just been living through radiation ever since? I mean, Cuban Missile Crisis was well before me, but almost radiated the world one way or another. If that wasn't bad enough, they were still doing testing until they actually made out with the SALT treaties and stopped the nuclear testing. Turned portions of Nevada and Arizona into radioactive areas. Yeah, keep track of this stuff. We were learning in school about post-apocalyptic times. We were listening and learning about autocracy happening and screwing things over left and right in our time. But did we actually see anything about famine that scared the hell out of us? Ooh, that was the 80s, wasn't it? Well, we had definitely had a weather shift happening, or a climatic shift that basically baked Africa. Portions of Africa were starving as hell, and we weren't getting enough food and aid over there. Not to mention, we had warlords taking advantage of things out there, making lives ruined for everybody out in there. Didn't matter which particular country. Some countries actually in the Central Africa region, to the northern northeast and to the southwest. It was a centralized area and spreading out like crazy. Disease, pestilence, famine. You're talking about the 4 apocalyptic horsemen having a party out there. We had warlords, God knows, before even I was born, making Africa, portions of it what used to be paradise. Now it's just struggle for survival for all the animals out there. And then we're talking about the animals and our two-legged, making it hell for everybody else. So what do we happen to see during the 80s? We are the world. We have the musicians get pissed off that the governments weren't doing enough, that the NGOs really needed help, so this particular NGO kicked in and really made sales off of one particular album and one particular song and one video that caught everyone's attention on this one. Really bad. You didn't mention about that shit, didn't you? We were chucking money in for an album just to save Africa. We had live USAID going up because we also had the issues out in our own damn country. Europe, I'm not quite sure, but they actually had theirs going on centuries earlier. So now, this is our time of dealing with Gaza because of man-made stupidity. But then again, the other times for man-made stupidity are actually nature. And it's still ongoing in different countries throughout our lifetime and even prior to that. Man's inhumanity towards each other. Doesn't matter which generation we're talking about. Doesn't matter if we're talking about the baby boomers to the last generationals that actually are passing away because they remembered what happened in World War I and World War II. Oh, did I actually mention something about World War II? What happened afterwards in Berlin? The particular portion of a country that tried to eliminate people and control people. And what did the Americans do and everybody else tried to do? Food aid. The Berlin airlifts. Did you ever think about that one or talked about that one? Or even try to relay that to our current youngest generation who still has a problem with history. And not to mention the generation prior to that and the generation prior to that who still want to stick their heads in the damn in the wherever the hell they want to stick their heads into, and just keep thinking, oh, Christian fundamentalists will save us, Christian nationalists, Christians will save us, oh, hell, Trump, and all this political bullshit. The Middle East had been a hot zone for millenniums, probably even prior before the Bible was even written, or even the Quran. We couldn't even get our act together. As human beings, we couldn't even get our act together. We had empires during those days. Didn't it say somewhere in the Old Testament that they actually had drought and famine going on in those times? And that we actually had tribes going into Egypt for safety and salvation because somebody actually had a dream and turned it into a reality and saved a lot of people. But then after that, generations later, became enslaved to it. Politics still do that to you every single time. They got past the famine during that time. They got past the droughts during those times. But the problem is, if I'm looking at this thing in a historical point of view concerning about our climate, concerning about our planet going through these damn stages, even back then it wasn't even mankind's problem. But these days, it is mankind's problem because we still can't get our act together. It's scary when I keep looking at man's past and history and looking at certain points and have to correlate everything else. Does the youth of today, stuck with their faces in the damn machines, understand this damn crap that some of the professors are trying to get down their throats? Do they understand any of this and put this into a context or perspective? Because unfortunately, our older generation right now is having a hard time trying to educate our own damn selves about it because we keep lying to ourselves about the damn shit. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. It's not happening. It's not happening. And then we get into the largest heat wave we've ever gone through, ever recorded, and also getting worse. Each progressive cycle. Icebergs are melting. Why? Because the earth is warming up. Fish are dying, oxygen depletion inside the damn waters. We have coral reefs bleaching out, not coming back. It'll take a miracle from God for that to happen. Only if the waters had cooled down sufficiently. But we're pumping up fresh water into the salt water by having the warming effect, affecting the salinity, affecting the temperature range. There's a bit of chemistry on this one, don't you think? A bit of science. Scary, isn't it? To understand a little bit about science, what the hell's going on around you, without sticking your head in some kind of bucket and thinking you know better than everybody else. Pisses me off when you do this little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. You don't even put it into your damn descriptions left and right of giving links to people to research this damn shit. I got to be doing that more and more often. I have to be taking my own advice and doing this more and more often on my own damn channel. I usually talk about my own damn mental screw-ups, my own mental illness going on, my own grieving and mourning because of my family who died a long time ago still are affecting me to this day. And yet, I have more of a love for education than I had back at 30 kids' age. because I didn't know any better. They didn't have the context, or I was being force fed the context. I didn't have perspective. I didn't have maturity. I'm supposed to be an absorbable machine, just taking in all the knowledge and not putting it into a context. I wanted to be a storyteller to tell the stories to people, but I had to put things into a context, into a perspective, into a format that I can grasp, and then I could try communicating that to other people about it. Historians ought to be storytellers. Study enough books, study enough authors' opinions at this point over here, what they're looking at, their own observations of how we're looking at things. Are you seeing the motions going on? Are you seeing connections being made in your head? You're actually listening to this thing, or are you just kind of fizzling out and ready to put your head back in the bucket again? You're trying so hard, trying to reach these young millennials, and we got to do harder than that. And sometimes reality check is the hardest thing they have to deal with. War, famine. We have a constant history of it. Constant strife and struggle. We can't get our act together, even though we keep saying we're going to be doing this, we're going to be doing this, we're going to be doing this. We keep seeing the results of it. I'll bring it back to the 20th century, the Berlin airlift. Because Germany was getting split apart by the Soviet Union and people are still starving in Berlin, we had to have the constant airdrops coming in to help feed those people. And in other portions of Germany, but mostly in Berlin because it was cut off by Russia at the time, trying to form their own Soviet Union. And they had their own famine. They had their own starvation. We bombed it into non-existence. Everything has perspective, context. We have to be storytellers. We have to tell them in a format that we can make them understand what the hell was going on. We have to demonstrate what history is all about, what life is all about. Remember from the old stories from our older generations that we had to grow up listening to and groaning our asses off. You were moaning and groaning about that piece of fudge coming out of the microwave oven. That must have been a hell of a banquet meal or Swanson dinner. I've got mine pulled out of a damn oven, gas-powered oven. I miss those. I miss a working oven and I can actually do that to stuff. I actually miss a working microwave oven that isn't bug-infested. Yeah, you try living in places that actually have bugs all around you. Let's see how you deal with that shit. I miss those days. Kids are too damn spoiled. We keep saying. Our older generation kept telling us that same damn shit. If the generation from the ones who actually lived through World War One actually see this stuff a century later, they'll be wanting to go back to World War One generation and just stay in that time zone. It's because they couldn't deal with the modern technology we've got today. It's bad enough we actually have our living relatives who survived World War II, who are in their 70s and 80s looking at our stuff. Not to mention the 50s and 60s looking at the stuff and trying to understand how addicting this stuff is. And I'm so damn addicted to it, it's not even funny. We're now doing the communications. We are now doing MySpace, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. Oh, that's another thing right there to get into. Shall we get into TikTok? Shall we get into this domain that we throw politics and we throw ego, we throw countries, we throw danger of our identities being stolen because this other country is the enemy? More one way or another, huh? Ideology, we're at war. Physically, we almost came to it on a constant basis. Do these kids actually understand the war between China and everybody else who's got a democratic controlled country? Or also a territory that wants to be democratic control? Or how about the waters off of their own coast that are being contested by the other countries because they say that their territories are being invaded by China? And then the U.S. has to get involved by sailing ships throughout the area and get flybys and ships crossing their paths. And not to mention almost weaponry being used. And China having a conniption fit. They want to draw Taiwan in. They can't do Taiwan. Taiwan don't want China. They want their own nation. They want to be known Taiwanese. But they can't do it because China is too much of a big ass bully at this point over here. It's like dealing with the European information. Everything has things cross referenced one way or another. This big, huge conglomerate web, that World Wide Web. Remember that terminology? The WWW, the World Wide Web. The hypertext protocols. Learning all this stuff. We teach the kids how to be technocrats. We teach the kids how to be technically able to do this stuff to teach us old farts how to do this shit. We write up the bullshit and they keep teaching it back to us one way or another. We're wondering how come we're getting so much of our supplies screwed up one way or another for our electronics. We're wondering how other countries are struggling with their own damn population control with less land to deal with, or in certain cases, more land to deal with, but not enough water going into it to make it fertile enough to grow food. Or else we have rainforests being torn apart left and right because we need food, not oxygen. And we have people who want money, power, control, and domination. Pretty surely we're going to be into a resource war we're not going to get out of unless we're already in this Cold War of a resource war. Did you ever think about that one? Probably think about it's a conspiracy theory. You'll probably see the damn thing on QAnon sites, right? I hadn't touched them. I don't need to touch them. I look at history. I read history. I don't care if it's liberal or maybe conservative. Conservative has a different point of view. But liberal, we're trying to be open-minded as much as possible. I said trying to be. I didn't say we're succeeded at the damn thing. They would consider us as socialists, communists, because we're brought up under capitalism. Every man for himself. Dog eat dog. Laissez-faire. All these nice technical terms to learn in school. And people are like, eh? Stuff I had to learn in college. At an adult age, not a kid's age. If I stayed in it long enough, if I hadn't screwed myself up in college, maybe I would have had a better degree and better understanding what the hell's going on. Or maybe I'll be just as screwed up as the adults these days who are still struggling with what they're learning. But even if I actually had a college degree and possibly in business, how many people do I know about with business degrees in the 80s and 90s who were trying to make a killing, and then back in the 2000s they were crashing and burning and ending up at Walmart, ending up as people greeters, or better yet, cashiers and sales associates? People I met along the way. Worst comes to worst, how about being homeless? These kids, some of them actually are coming from the streets, trying to afford just a basic cell phone with smartphone technology that they'll probably get from the government. Called them Obama phones. Even out here in California, we still did the same thing for several years. And we still have those phones coming up. Refurbished, recycled, working phones that they can surf the World Wide Web and get some education out of the damn thing. Communicate what the hell's going on, but they still have to find places to charge them up. But the worst thing for them to do for the homeless is trying to find places to live and sleep. How does this affect famine? How does this affect famine in your particular territory? What they call about food deficits? Voids happening in local communities where they're not getting enough food, or the food's so damn expensive they can't afford it, so they have to go to food giveaways. Old food to use. We still got the famine happening out here in our own damn country. And that the young kids are still seeing this shit. Not to mention the older generation. Talk to the homeless on the streets. You'll know about it. There's a lot more than just a generational shift. There's a hell of a lot more going on these days. We use politics to play head games with ourselves. We treat humanity as if it's just a damn game. It isn't. It's real life. It's happening to a lot of people across the world. My grandmother had come up with this expression. You probably heard it from your grandmother. Clean up your plate. They're starving in China. Don't throw your food away. I never quite figured out what the hell that meant until later as an adult looking at everything else. It's no wonder we go crazy with the obesity. We have to scarf out because we don't want the food being given out to anybody else. We see the starvation in other countries, currently in Gaza. You know what scared the hell out of me, Justin? You know what scared the hell out of me, Daryl? Is when I'm seeing interviews on CNN of protesters stopping food aid that goes into Gaza. Yeah, I can blame Hamas for all this damn shit, but I also blame the Palestinian people and Israel at the same damn time. Why? Understanding the history, a long time ago, it was called Palestine. But for the folks of Israel, for the people of Israel, they wanted a homeland. And right after the genocide of World War II, the United Nations made that possible by taking Palestine and turning that damn thing into Swiss cheese. So now we got generational after generational hatred between these two people. We couldn't have a two-party or two-state solution to this damn thing. No. We have a perpetual, constant civil war going on in that country. It's culminated into the situation we've got right now as it is. Who's to blame? We got to find somebody to blame because we need to find somebody to blame. We can't find a solution until we find somebody to blame. Meanwhile, people are starving. No, we can't bother with that. We need to find somebody to blame. We need to put our hatred and everything else into the damn thing. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of time periods that have put people in this kind of situation. And we're constantly looking for revenge. We're constantly looking for quote-unquote justice. This latest situation happened was it October, November, in that time period, that Hamas decided they wanted to cause more hell and havoc in the world, and they did it. And now they're laughing their asses off as Gaza, which they stayed in all this time, is reaping it. And then Israel is being the whirlwind and going further in their anger and their hatred. It's not just losing people. It's the generational anger. It's the generational anger. It's the anger among the Muslims. It's the anger among the Arabs. It's the anger of the Middle East. It never dies. At this point, I don't think anything else will. Even if we happen to have some kind of weird-ass cosmic situation that would pull us together, we would still have the result. We would still have that resonating anger. And there's no way to get rid of it. There's no way. We could try to negotiate. We could try barely peace for a short time, and then we're trying to kill each other again because it flares up. It's like an evasive cancer that can never be removed out of the human condition. You ever talk about that one? So I'm wondering if our planet is indeed doomed for extinction. Are we going to have another life form come up in about 1 million years who may be a little bit smarter than us, or just likely forget the human race ever existed? Maybe that should be better for us. We can't get our act together. We don't want to get our act together. We like being at this stage. We like killing each other left and right because we're so damn good at it. We find our ideologies, we find our political crap, we find the mental health games going on. Let's go torture everybody. Follow my insanity, or otherwise I'm going to be putting you through the headlocker. We got history. We've got history lasting for God knows how long. Probably before the written language of mankind. Well before. Story of survival. Still built into our genetics that we can't get rid of. I don't care how many centuries we're going to be outliving. Mankind's never going to get rid of this damn shit. We keep saying it's going to take an act of God. Maybe God's been trying to work his magic one way or another, through subtlety, through suggestions, try smaller acts, maybe to grow something positive. Meanwhile, we've got a raging forest fire that we just can't take care of because we don't have the water to take care of it. You know, if we actually did get maybe time travelers to look at our time, they'd be questioning themselves, how the hell did we ever get into our situation? How the hell did we ever survive this reign of terror? Pain and misery, it seems to be the only thing we understand more and more. We throw hope into the damn fire, hoping it burns. And yeah, it does burn. Problem is, sometimes that fire of hopelessness is burning itself out one way or another. Because someone is holding on to hope real bad. And trying to use that as water to put out the damn fire. Maybe we should take that example. We could throw on weird ass shirts with weird ass signatures on the damn thing and show people what we live and breathe, what we think we honor, either as fans or are we actually doing it because of a damn message left and right. That was a nice shirt that you put on there, MTV Generation. There are certain tunes out there that kind of talked about our generation. One of them was Jesus Knows Me from Phil Collins and Genesis. I love that one. That deals with the religious aspect we got these days. I think maybe one of these here days I'm going to put that on a video as well. I'm going to get a link for that one and put it on here for people to listen to. Here's another thing. This is a long ass video and I don't care a Anyway. I just lost the train of thought. MTV was actually talking to our generation about the previous generations, all the way up to this generation. And some of the music we grew up under was talking about their own generational problems, their own situations they were growing up under. Did we ever actually listen to them and actually paid attention to them? We should have. It would remind us of what mattered to us a great deal. And unfortunately, we lost that information a long time ago. We thought we knew better, but we didn't. We still don't. How's that for a feast of thoughts for your brain there, Mr. Bo in no, actually that's Bo the fifth column, not artist in recovery. Well, how about both of you gentlemen then?